how Trump's tariffs will impact the worldwide economy and other international affairs. Well, today we discuss. So right now we have since just a few weeks of the Trump 2.0 administration. One of the main issues that have been going on is, of course, the imposing of tariffs on international trade, of course, depending on the country and the goods that are being traded with the United States. And of course, we know this is a Trump traditional move. And yeah, the results, well, we have to wait and see. But right now, let's do some, just a review, a Reader's Digest on such tariffs so far. Well, we had first the threat of tariffs to both Canada and Mexico, the USMCA former NAFTA treaty countries. And well, we know the deal. Canada 25% on goods, Mexico same 25% tariffs on goods from Mexico to the United States. But such tariffs have been placed in hold for a month since both governments of Canada and Mexico decided to cooperate on certain issues that Trump was preoccupied regarding U.S. affairs, drug dealing, migration, the fentanyl, things like that. Of course, the the governments of both countries, Canada and Mexico, they they got a little bit stubborn at first, but they're playing ball right now, and that's the reason why such tariffs will be placed on a hold for 1 month, and let's see what happens after such month. And then we have one of Trump's favorite targets, China, 10% on goods coming from China, and China started to retaliate 15% on some goods like American manufactured cars and related goods, in total around 14 billion worth of US goods going to China. The European Union also is on the side of President Trump. We don't have a number right now, but he is the side, or at least is right now considering significantly imposing tariffs to the European Union. The European Union, the response was that the leaders of the European Union said that they will consider implementing reciprocity on such tariffs as well. Spain also got slapped with tariffs, particularly at 29% tariffs on the exports on the industry. Spain is actually has an important green energy sector, and basically those are the companies that they will be slapped with tariffs. And also you have to remember that Spain is not as developed regarding industrial capacity and so on. The economics of Spain is not as complex and diversified as other developed economies, so that will create a huge impact on Spain's economy. And last but not least, also Trump announced a 25% tariffs on steel and aluminum coming from basically worldwide. So there is not a particular affinity on these particular tariffs. 25% for everyone on this particular industry. For instance, just Brazil announced that they will try to negotiate something with Trump, since apparently the tariff will affect countries where the US has a negative trade balance. And let me explain this very quickly. The trade balance is just basically the balance between imports and exports. And when you have a negative trade balance, is that you import from a country more than you export to such country. On particular case, on Brazil, actually the US has a positive trade balance. Let me put here the number. And the Brazilian government will try to cut a deal on the tariffs on steel because it's an important industry within this country. Now let's talk about on the effects on such tariffs, this particular dynamic on worldwide economics. Well, first, I'm not a big fan of tariffs. I have to say, one of the things that I always criticize about Donald Trump. However, I've been, loosening it up, softening to the idea of tariffs if they are used in order to negotiate some geopolitical strategies for national security and things like that. On that regard, I'm kind of I just, you know, digested the concept of tariffs. Now, that happened with Canada and Mexico, so on that regard, I'm cool about it. However, the rest, with China, then you have China, that the US has a particular, of course, this, let's say, race to be the number one global superpower, uh, especially on GDP numbers. Now, on economics, just this particular tariffs with China is that China is a big commercial partner, trade partner of the United States, regardless of politics. And many of the household goods that the average American consumes and purchases come manufactured from China. So each tariff will increase the final price for the final consumer. And this is something that the average American consumer will have to pay. So, especially if the Trump supporters and voters and saying that's good or bad, they will have to pay for this particular, this particular policy that, being completely fair, this is something that Trump has talked about since day one on his political career, and also that he applied the the same thing with on his first term. But apparently, the Biden administration also kept up with the tariffs to China. So that regard. So the main issue is that if you live in the United States, basically you are paying a little bit of a premium, a small premium on several household products for, this, let's say, geopolitical sovereignty. Let's put the name just for the sake of the conversation. But here's the other issue. China, until just a few years ago, it was the main exporter to the United States until just a couple of years ago when Mexico surpassed China for this particular title. I'm going to put the chart here. It's all over the place. However, Mexico apparently is going to get tariffs of their own. Of course, there are also taxes. So this new dynamic, I don't know how it's going to impact. Since both China and now Mexico, let's see what happens in Mexico, will be applied tariffs of their own. Basically, in this particular process of getting your supply chain more regional, closer to the world, on your particular position in the world, is what is known as nearshoring. That it was a big hype in especially Mexico, and that came also due to the supply chain and logistical issues during COVID. So in order to have your supply chain closer to home. But right now, I don't know how it's going to end. Of course, we are going to discuss, we're going to have an eye on how things end up happening. Now, these tariffs against steel and aluminum can affect severely the worldwide supply chain. I mean, at least on the price structure and the cost structure, the end consumer of all of these goods, that there are billions and billions and billions worldwide, that will cause inflation of its own, because on this particular issue regarding steel and aluminum, it's not about geopolitics, it's about commerce. And the end result, if those tariffs are not lifted, the end result is going to be inflation. The prices are going to rise for each good worldwide, especially if the rest of the world imposes tariffs of their own to the US market. Now, let's go beyond economics and how I'm talking relationships, also the trust of different entrepreneurs, businessmen, empresarios, whatever might be the case, regarding the relationship with the United States. So that creates the main point, and the end result is that might create more instability regarding to investing or any given product, any given company that is related to the United States. So that can create significant backlashes to basically the supply chain, also companies dealing with US companies dealing with the rest of the world, and so on. And a bunch of, basically you have to shift and do some changes depending on how hard the tariffs will hit. The changes that you have to accommodate, you have to basically all the time you have to keep changing strategies regarding supply chain, cost, logistics, legal permits, whatever might be the case, but also on the geopolitical sphere, how the rest of the world is going to take these particular measures to the United States, because at the end of the day, it will affect is US companies and also US consumers. Thank you for watching Continental Insider. Please like, share, and subscribe. Follow us on social media, and if you want to work with us, continentalinsider.com. Thanks again, and have a nice day.